They should have pushed back that my plan sucked. I was a level 2 wizard. I would have really sucked as a bodyguard. Alright class, settle down and let me tell you a story. Tonight we're doing D&D 101 because after more than 30 years of life, the good Lord has finally let me play. Doing all those demos for A Song of Ice and Fire miniatures actually paid off during the last con because it got me in touch with the country's thriving adventure community. But before we check it out, please like, share, subscribe, do the whole notification button thing to help me out with the algo, and here we go. As a 90s kid who grew up in a third world city, I always knew that D&D existed because all I had were books, and some of them pointed to its existence. I always wanted to play, but for me, it was literally a universe away since my only source were like secondhand literature whose covers were deliberately ripped to avoid customs duty. These books were literally smuggled in. One of the downsides I've seen so far is the paywall for some online features of D&D. I ran into some paywall in D&D and Beyond, and I think Roll20, if I'm not mistaken. With regards to character creation access, you have to pay for some stuff in their marketplace, but you know what? No system is perfect. So far, I have 2 one-shot games under my belt, and hopefully here's some more.
This video is for 3 kinds of people. First, people who are interested in D&D but don't really understand how it actually works. You know, the die curious. Second, people who are so experienced with D&D that when you need to introduce a new player, you don't even know where to start. If you find yourself
we ran into this problem with regards to A Song of Ice and Fire when doing demos during the last convention. Because fine, we have good players, but the problem is when explaining the game, they tend to provide an info overload to people who want to try the game out, to the people they're doing the demo for. Guess what? Playing the game and teaching the game are 2 different and separate skills. Like, you know, you can be a good doctor, lawyer, engineer, but it doesn't mean that you can teach the subject well. It doesn't mean that you can teach medicine, law, or engineering well to, you know, the next generation or to your students. Because, you know, teaching is a separate and different skill from actually practicing the craft or actually playing the game. And most people don't seem to understand that. So a lot of people, when doing demos of other systems to new people, they have that trouble. They tend to info overload the person they're doing the demo for.
Explaining skill modifiers in the first 2 minutes and watching their eyes glaze over, this video is also for you. And third, my mom. I know she watches all my videos. Hi, Mom. Dungeons & Dragons is a tabletop role-playing game. If that means nothing to you, allow me to explain. Basically, it's play pretend for adults. Your very own Lord of the Rings or Game of Thrones, or more likely Monty Python and the Holy Grail, where you are Frodo Baggins or Jon Snow or Sir not appearing in this film. You get to decide what they do and how the story goes. But since we're grown-ups now, we need rules for our play pretend.
Are we? Are we grown-ups?
What about if I have wings and I fly to the moon and become queen of all the horses on the moon? It just doesn't cut it anymore. And let's be honest, it didn't cut it then either, because I'm already queen of the moon. Tabletop games give us those rules, a structure within which to play out a fantasy story. In the case of D&D, the structure is pretty simple. You verbally describe what your character does, and then you roll dice to see what happens next.
I'm sorry, you guys, but we honestly have the same mirror at our house. Like this one right behind her.
Of course, it gets a lot more specific from there, but don't let the textbook scare you off. You don't need to read these in order to start playing. I'll show you the basics, and then if you fall in love with the game, you can decide whether or not you become the kind of nerd who reads rulebooks for fun. Let's start with the 2 roles in D&D, Dungeon Master and Dungeon Mistress. Just kidding, don't get too excited, it's Dungeon.
Yeah, I think Dungeon Mistress stands for something else. Something for adults.
Dungeon Master and Player. There's usually just 1 Dungeon Master and 4 to 6 players, although there are always exceptions. A player, wait for it, plays a character. I know, shocking twist. They step into the shoes of a fictional adventurer and try to make the choices that character would make. So if your character finds their path cut off by a river of lava, you get to decide if they would try to build a bridge, or find another route, or take a little swim. That's the fun part of D&D. You can make
Or you can negotiate with the PNP to just row you over. But it depends.
Whatever choices you want, even if they're stupid. Meanwhile, the Dungeon Master, or DM, is in charge of everything else. The world, including all...
I have this feeling, that the DM judges are each and every decision. These people are just stupid. I mean, I made several questionable decisions in my second game. I got like 2 hostages killed. I got like 2 NPCs killed because of the wrong decision. Apparently, I suck as a bodyguard. But seriously, I regret it. I mean, those people or those NPCs cost a lot more alive than dead. And yeah, we established that I suck as a bodyguard.
The non-player characters and creatures that live in it, and how that world reacts to what the players are doing. Nobody wins or loses D&D, so the Dungeon Master isn't your enemy. Think of them
Wait, we don't? Okay.
as your tour guide through the game. If you look to your right, you'll see the beautiful King's Hill Castle, and to the left, a horde of angry goblins. You might have noticed that they're carrying weapons and appear angry. That's because they are about to try and kill you. These are generally static roles within any given D&D game, so the DM will be the DM for the entire game, and likewise you'll be a player for the entire game. You may even play the same character the whole time, as long as they don't decide to take a swim in the lava river, in which case you will need a new character who is less crispy, and hopefully smarter. Speaking of your character, segue here. Wait, as a D&D player, you will have a character that is yours. Congratulations.
Of course.
It's like having a child, except you won't get in trouble for putting them in danger for your own amusement. It might be a pre-made character, or it might be a character that you have created yourself, hopefully under the watchful eye of your Dungeon Master. We're not doing a full walkthrough on...
Check this out, right? As a kid, from Dragon Age to Skyrim, the original Dragon Age, by the way, and all those RPGs that I played, I always found that for me that it was always better for me to actually project myself onto these characters, because that way I feel like I'm actually immersed within the story, or I'm actually part of the story. Because you know what, if I go with a pre-made character, or if I play RPGs where you just simply play one of the characters, it feels as if I'm simply watching a movie, that I'm watching it happen to someone else. Whereas if I project myself to a character by, through character customization and something like that, especially in Dragon Age, Mass Effect, Skyrim, I feel more immersed that way. I feel more invested in the story.
Character creation here because we don't have 40 minutes. Well, you might, but it's Sunday when I'm filming this, and my poor video editor doesn't deserve any more suffering than I already put her through. All the important information about your character will live on a sheet that looks like this, or maybe like this. But the first time you look at it, it'll probably feel something like this. I know the character sheet can look very intimidating to a first-time player. When you see all the numbers, you might be like, Ginny, are we playing pretend or joining the mathletes? I mean, what do you think I am, some kind of nerd? But don't worry, I promise this isn't as scary as it looks. It's really just a reference sheet, and you'll come back to it throughout the game whenever you need something specific. You don't have to memorize all this. In fact, that's why we write it down, so you can ignore all this stuff most of the time.
Thank God, it's just addition and subtraction. But then again, I have yet to encounter anything that requires multiplication or division, so yeah.
Back to the sheet, but first, it's time for today's sponsor. Segue here. Shoot, hang on. Hey friends, today's sponsor is Serious Dice, and today we are gonna be unboxing, we are gonna be unboxing their new mini dice cups. Each one holds a collectible glass cup featuring iconic Dungeons & Dragons monsters and characters. Naturally, I'm hoping to get a Mimic cup to match my new studio decor. Hey, behave yourself. Up first, we have, looks like a common beholder. Each of the 8 designs comes in 3 rarities. Common, which is a monochromatic sculpt, rare, which is painted, and legendary, which is metal. And of course, each one comes with a full set of miniature dice that fit right into the cup. Let's see what else
do you use it to Yes,
a Mimic! Oh my gosh, I'm so glad I got one. I was really hoping I would... Oh, come on, even my legendary Mind Flayer? You think Serious Dice is gonna buy my Mimic 8 the sponsor product? I'm gonna have to go to my own link in the description if I wanna collect them all.
Aww.
Although, I do kinda wanna try for a rare Mimic. Here, eat this too. I'm gonna go send an email.
Ah.
Okay, let's talk about what makes up a character. One of my favorite parts of D&D is that the character possibilities are infinite. Your character will be different from any other character that's ever been created. Player characters, or PCs, have tons of different features, but there are a few big ones. There's species, like human or elf or dwarf. There's class, which is like your character's specialty. A rogue is good at being
job, I think.
Sneaky, a wizard does magic, a barbarian hits stuff really hard with a great axe or a sword and has really big, bulging muscles, glistening with sweat.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Anyways.
I was thinking about character optimization. Within each class, there are subclasses. So you could be a wizard who's really good at using divination magic and predicting the future, or a wizard who's really good at blowing stuff up. There are tons of these little choices throughout character creation, so you get to make exactly the character that you want to play, whether that's a magical elf princess who can talk to animals, or a big, strong warrior who can cleave the head from your shoulders in a single strike. Or, you know, a magical elf princess who can cleave the head from your shoulders in a single strike. The sky's the limit. The other important part of a character sheet is your ability scores. Those are the biggest numbers on the sheet, and there are 6 of them. These numbers basically just tell you what your character is good at and how good at it they are. So a very smart character will have a high intelligence score, whereas a very charming character will have a high charisma score. Or maybe you have high intelligence and high charisma, which, in my opinion, shouldn't be allowed. The rest of us have to pick one. This is what can make D&D start to feel mathy, but it makes the difference between playing pretend and playing.
I mean, for me, actually, one of the downsides of RPG is that I feel like your character is locked in a box. Like, of course, you know, wizards have to be glass cannons, barbarians have to be dumb brutes. I mean, there are people who exist. I mean, I know a lot of athletic people who actually received scholarship not because of their athletic ability, but because of their academic ability. They're there for academic reasons, not for sports reasons. Just because you have high intelligence, it doesn't mean you've never done a push-up your entire life. I mean, this is one of the reasons why I usually avoid a mathy RPGs. It's because I feel like the character is trapped in a box. That's why Skyrim was so refreshing. That's why you know, the Elder Scrolls franchise was so refreshing, because your skills are totally dependent on your activity, not on what you provided on the character sheet.
A role-playing game. You don't just get to say, I kill the dragon with my sword.
Yeah.
You use these numbers to see if you're strong enough to actually hit the dragon with your sword, and how hard you hit it, and if the dragon can hit you back. Spoiler alert, it probably can, but more on the numbers later. All this stuff, the species, class, subclass, ability scores, these are all game mechanics. There are options written into the rulebooks, and you choose from those options. Different choices mean you can do different things in the game. A fighter usually won't be able to cast spells like a sorcerer does. A monk can't turn into animals like a druid can. But there are other parts of the character that are less about the rules of the game and more about the story you're telling. You get to choose your character's name, what they look like, what their history is, how they act and talk. There isn't a character builder where you're selecting a hairstyle or something. This is all in your imagination. Which means, yes, your barbarian can have frosted tips. You're welcome. There are accepted norms, like elves have pointed ears or paladins wear plate armor, but most of it you just make up. Sometimes people draw their characters or use online tools to show what they look like. Or if you're an
See, that's what I was referring to, the online tools that's provided by, I think, Roll20 and D&D and Beyond. They're actually behind a paywall. You need to buy the books in order to access them, because was it last week? No, it was yesterday. I was trying to basically recreate my character last Sunday. Unfortunately, it was behind this paywall.
Absolute crazy person. You might even dress up as your character. Can you imagine?
Not?
What kind of weirdo?
Project yourself.
Oh my god, I told you not to interrupt me while I'm filming. Jeez. Anyway, some players—
That was her, eh? I didn't see it properly. That was her.
enjoy diving really deep into the creative part of characters. They might have a full physical description, a deep backstory about where they were born and how they were raised, and a whole unique personality. But it's also totally fine to just be like, he's a human and he likes to hunt monsters. Don't let anybody's passion for character creation make you feel intimidated. All that stuff is optional, and a lot of it'll develop naturally as you play. You need to have a—
So the sky is the limit and hell is the bottom.
character sheet filled out before you start playing. Every Dungeon Master has different rules and expectations for characters, so you should always talk to them before you create a character. That way you don't show up to a pirate campaign as a seasick paladin who's too lawful good to jaywalk. Now let's talk about what gameplay actually looks like.
Actually, if you're not into the character creation, because I encountered a lot of people that simply aren't into it, you can just ask your DM for a pre-made character, or you can just download a pre-made character online.
Segue here. Wait, what the when it's time to actually play, you'll sit down with the Dungeon Master and the other players and your character sheet and some dice. And a cat, if you're lucky. This might happen in person, around an actual table, at a local game store, or at somebody's house. Or it might happen online, on a Zoom call or a Discord chat. Then you'll start actually playing.
I'm not into the whole online aspect of it. For the simple reason that it feels a bit video game-ish, that it's simply gonna be me devolving back into screaming at strangers online. So for me personally, I'd rather have it face to face.
Here's how it might go. Your character is in a tavern. It's crowded with people, and a bard is picking out a tune on their lute for copper coins. How do you know all this? Well, because your Dungeon Master tells you. Unlike a video game, you can't see your surroundings. You have to imagine them. All your information comes through the Dungeon Master, which means if you're trying to imagine it and there are gaps in your imagination, you might need to ask questions, like, how big is the tavern? Is there an empty table where I can sit? Is the bard playing Wonderwall? And if not, how much do you think I need to tip?
If the bard plays Wonderwall, I'm gonna commit my first murder.
To change that. Once the Dungeon Master describes the situation, you and your fellow players are in the driver's seat. You get to decide what you do next. Maybe you order a round of ale, maybe you start chatting with the bard, maybe you start a bar fight. It's not like you're picking from a list of options here. You can do pretty much anything you can think of, or at least you can try. If you want to do something crazy, like try and burn down the tavern, you can.
Why not?
As long as you're ready to face the consequences for committing arson. When you roleplay like this, it's very freeform.
What's the consequence for murder then if the bard plays Wonderwall?
Only part of the game where you're taking turns is when you're in combat.
Initiative.
The rest of the time, you can do or say as much or as little as you want. Although, of course, you should always remember that you're not the main character of D&D, you're part of a team. So all the players deserve to join in. When you want your character to do something, you just describe it. You can use first person, as in, I ask the bartender if he's heard any rumors lately. Or third person, as in, Cragnock the Skull Crusher asks the bartender if he's single. And he blushes a little. If you're too vague or broad with these actions, your DM might ask you to be more specific. For example, you probably can't just say, I burned down the tavern. Your DM would respond with something like, okay, how do you do that? You would need to describe using magic or
you light up a flint and a flask of oil behind a bar or something.
Torch to get a flame, and how you would conceal what you're doing from the bartender and the other tavern patrons so they don't stop you. And of course, you would need to make a dice roll or two. That's right, it's time to talk dice.
Yeah. Nice. Oh my god, look at her
Don't panic. You don't need all this, I just have a problem.
Alright, so clearly she's not the organized type.
This is a standard set of polyhedral dice. There are 7 of them, and they go from 4-sided all the way to 20-sided. For the vast majority of rolls you'll be making in D&D, you will use only one of these dice, the 20-sided die, or D20. Let's say you want to kick down a door. The Dungeon Master might say, roll a strength check. They want to know if your character is strong enough to kick down a door. To find out, you'll roll your D20 and say the result out loud, like this. That's a 13. The DM already knows how hard the door is to break. If it's an easy task, like a flimsy wooden door, you might only need to roll a 10 or higher. If it's a heavy, reinforced door, you might need a 16 or higher. You don't know the number, only the DM does, but they'll tell you if your roll was high enough. Now, it's not just about the dice. Strong characters have a better chance here. If I try to kick down a door, and so does Terry Crews, we don't have equal chances. No offense, Terry, but you're gonna have to up your gym time if you want to keep up with me. Remember how each character has a strength score? If your character is stronger than average, they get a bonus called a modifier to their roll. For example, if your strength score is above average, you might have a +1 or +2. If your strength is below average, it might be a -1. You add or subtract this number from your roll. So if you roll a 13,
well, as a wizard, I have like My dex is really low, as an average of 10.
And your strength modifier is +1, your final result is 14.
Ooh.
If the door is easy to break, your DM might say, great, you kick it down. But if the door is tough, they might say, the wood is too thick. Your kick doesn't even leave a dent. Sorry, Terry, maybe you should leave the door kicking to Ginny. Your character sheet also has a section called Skills, which breaks down specific talents. For example, Charisma is a general ability, but Deception is a specific skill, how good your character is at lying. If you're trying to lie in the game, the DM might ask for a Deception check instead of a general Charisma check. If you're not skilled at lying, you'll just add your Charisma modifier, because Deception is a Charisma-based skill. But if lying is your specialty, your Deception modifier might be higher, so you would add that instead.
Alright, I just realized that's what they call lying, Deception.
Don't worry, you don't need to memorize your skills or even know which one to use.
It's literally
just say what you want to do, like, I tell the farmer I'm a tax collector and he owes me money. And the DM will tell you what to roll. Like, okay, the farmer fishes 2 coins out of his purse and says he'll figure out how to feed the kids somehow. Go ahead and roll Deception, you monster. Of course, some characters have special abilities that give them extra options.
I mean, what's the worst that could happen if you shake down a few NPCs?
Let's say there's a fire. You could grab a bucket of water, or smother it with a blanket, or run around in circles yelling, fire, fire, oh my god, fire. It wouldn't help, but at least it would be believable roleplay. But if you're a spell...
That's what literally happened last game. Oh my god.
Caster, you might have a spell like Create or Destroy Water, which...
Technically, it wasn't my fault, alright? That tent was on fire to begin with, and all we had left were dead bodies in that tent.
You could use to put out the fire. Abilities like these are unique to your character, and you'll find them listed on your character sheet. You don't need to know every skill, spell, and ability in the game. Just focus on the ones that your character has. The rules for each ability are written right there on your sheet, so you'll always know how they work. Every game will be different in terms of how much you're interacting with non-player characters, solving puzzles, exploring, or fighting. Some will feel like epic fantasy, others like horror or folklore. Some games will have a clear plotline that you're following.
I honestly want to try out some horror. Hopefully I could find the DM for it. Because, check this out. I quit a lot of games because of puzzles. This was during the pre-internet stage. But now, since we have a PC with games with internet on it, every time I run into a puzzle, I just, pull up a YouTube tutorial on how to solve it. And during my first league game, one-shot game, I simply left the puzzle solving to my party members.
While others will feel more like an open world game where you can wander around and pursue whatever interests you. Some DMs have a lot of structure or are following an adventure written in a book, while others are just making it all up as they go. As you play, you'll get a clearer picture of what parts of the game are the most fun for you, and then you'll be able to find
based on what I've experienced, you could have a charismatic DM and a non-charismatic DM. But here's the thing. On both one-shots, they were both made-up stories, or they were both homebrew. Is that what you call it? They were both homebrew games made by the DM. The thing is, you need a charismatic DM who won't, go for, who need to basically think about everything. For me, having a dynamic DM would be much more fun. In my first game, the DM was very dynamic, very imaginative. He didn't have these long pauses. He didn't have trouble basically explaining what was happening. But on my second game, the DM wasn't really that good compared to the first one. He had to pause and think about how to describe what was happening. But anyways, I mean, to each his own. Each DM has their strengths, and hopefully, you get a good charismatic DM that could explain everything well, and that could really thrust your imagination into the story.
Find a game group that likes similar things. We can't put it off any longer. It's time to talk about combat. This is the most structured part of D&D, and it's where things can get a little complicated. Unlike the free-form roleplay we've talked about so far, combat happens in turns, in a specific order. To illustrate how combat works, we'll be using...
Barbie?
This isn't quite right. 1 second.
Oh. Barbarian Barbie?
There we go. This is my fearless barbarian, Babs the Destroyer. She has come face to face with a gelatinous cube. But don't worry, that's why she always carries a sword.
Would it actually work?
Combat begins with rolling initiative, which determines the turn order. Everybody rolls their d20, adds their initiative bonus, and the DM organizes the results. Babs rolled a 14, and the cube only rolled a 5. Loser. That means Babs goes first. On your turn, you get 3 basic things. Movement, an action, and maybe a bonus action. Movement is how far you can run, actions are usually used to attack or make some other big move, and bonus actions are for class-specific features. For example, Babs can use her bonus action to enter a battle rage, which makes her hit harder and take less damage. Grrr! I'm so angry! Now, she uses her movement to get within stabbing range of the cube and uses her action to swing her sword. Classic barbarian behavior, honestly. Yeah, attacking works a lot like a skill check. You roll your d20 and then add your weapon attack modifier. Just like with the check, the DM has a number that you'll have to meet in order to hit the cube. It's called armor class. If Babs hits, then she rolls more dice to see how much pain she's dishing out. But if she misses, then the cube lives to jiggle another day and Babs' turn is over. But let's assume she hits. This is where you finally get to use those other dice.
I just realized how much she looks like Macy Williams, Arya from Game of Thrones.
Babs' greatsword does 2d6 damage, so we'll roll 2.
Especially her facial shape and around the eyes.
2 6-sided dice, add her damage modifier, and tally it all up. That's
just really pretty, by the way.
10 damage. But now it's the cube's turn, and it's ready to take its gloopy vengeance. The DM is in charge of the cube, and they have a page with statistics for it, kind of like your character sheet. If the cube took a melee attack, like Babs did, then the DM would do the same thing that we did. Roll a d20 to see if the attack hits, and then roll damage if it does. But the cube also has another kind of attack. Instead of the DM rolling to hit, Babs has to roll to see if she can avoid the attack. This is called a saving throw. Attack rolls happen when the attacker tries to hit the target, like swinging a sword or throwing a bolt of magical fire. Saving throws happen when the target tries to avoid something dangerous, like resisting a poison or dodging a 10-foot cube of acidic goo. The cube tries to engulf Babs, and she has to make a dexterity saving throw. If she succeeds, she dodges
Alright, so she needs to jump out of the way.
If she fails, she's sucked inside and starts taking acid damage. Sorry,
needs
girl.
help.
Can't win them all. Babs is a barbarian, but combat is a little different for every class. If you're a magic user, like a cleric or a sorcerer, you're slinging spells instead of swords, which might involve spell attack rolls, saving throws, or other effects. Every class also has unique features. A monk can spend key points to make their punches and kicks do extra things, like stun their target. A druid can turn into animal form and fight as a bear or a wolf or a dinosaur. But no matter what your abilities are, your turn in combat will have the same basic shape: movement, action, bonus action. There's one more thing you can do, but this one happens in between turns. It's called a reaction. Some classes have special reactions, but the most common one, which everybody gets, is that if an enemy moves out of your reach, you get to take a swing at him, like a little parting gift. It's called an attack of opportunity.
Alright. So that's what you call them, an attack of opportunity. Like when an enemy, I've seen enemies disengage.
Watch out, because the bad guys can take those against you too. And that's combat. Don't worry if it feels like a lot. The more you play your character, the better you'll understand their specific skills, and the easier combat will feel. In the meantime, there is no shame in asking for help from your DM or from fellow players. Combat is easily the most complicated part of D&D, so a good game group will be very understanding as you learn. Oops, Babs is still taking acid damage. Let's get her out of there. This is why we have party members, by the way. It is not safe to adventure alone.
That's why we need them.
And now, segue here. God damn it, did I really not write any of these? And that's Dungeons & Dragons. Well, the basics, anyway. Some games are one-shots,
Actually, there's no rule in presentation or media that you can't just scream, segue! Then, you know what? I'm gonna use that. We're gonna segue here, alright?
The whole story wraps up in a single 3 to 4 hour session. Others are campaigns, which can run for weeks, months or even years of telling the same story with the same
I honestly want to try hardcover.
Characters, assuming that everyone's schedules and sanity hold out. This video is meant to get you started, but D&D is a big game, and there's a lot to learn beyond what I covered here. Some things you'll pick up as you play, and others you'll need to look up as they come up in your game. But don't stress, even experienced players and dungeon masters still need to check things like spell descriptions or obscure rules. You never have to memorize all of this, I promise. If you don't understand a rule or you're not sure what your character can do, just ask. D&D isn't a test, and it's okay to ask for help. One last thing, D&D is a team game, and the most important rule is to make sure that everyone is having fun. That means being respectful and remembering that the table is a shared space. If you decide to burn down the tavern, the whole party is probably gonna go to jail, so make sure everyone's excited about a Prison Break plotline before you do anything dire. If this sounds like fun and you're excited to learn more, I recommend checking out this playlist from—
Wait, I mean, the whole party shouldn't have listened to me. They should have, like, you know, countered my argument. They should have, like, said that, no, your plan, shut up, dog. They should have, shut up, dog. I mean, they should have told me that my plan sucked and that... Dog. What's going on outside? Should I be worried that the dogs are bothered? Or literally just waiting for the dogs to shut up right now? I mean, honestly, they should have pushed back that my plan sucked. I was a level 2 wizard. I would have really sucked as a bodyguard.
Or videos designed specifically for new players. But a quick word of caution, it's really easy to get caught up in watching videos and reading posts and listening to podcasts about D&D to the point where you work yourself up or build up unrealistic expectations for your first game. The best way to learn D&D is to find a table and start rolling some dice. Nothing you see online, including this video, is going to compare to the actual experience of sitting at a table or on a Discord call and sharing the story with other people. So go find some fellow nerds, grab a set of dice, and get ready to step into the shoes of a fantastical hero of your own creation. Just not the Queen of the Moon, because I'm already the Queen of the Moon.
Yes. Thank you for watching, guys. So if you want me to check out other stories here on YouTube, please let me know in the comments. We upload on the weekends, Tuesdays, and Thursdays. Also, check out our Twitch channel where you can watch me do this live. And please don't forget to like, share, subscribe, do the whole notification button thing to help me out with the algo, and class dismissed.